Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Holly, and I am going to actually be working on a tumbler that's already been glittered and sanded, and it's just been sitting around my craft room for a really long time, and I'm tired of looking at it. So I am going to put some stencil vinyl, floral vine sort of butterfly pieces on that blue tumbler, and then I'm going to create a peekaboo with glitter. I have no idea where I got this pattern for the stencil vinyl. I checked my Etsy account, I checked Crooked Design Space, can't find it anywhere. I've had it for a long time, gosh, maybe almost 2 years, and I really have no clue where I got it. So if you've seen this before, let me know so I can give that person credit. But I'm going to put that vinyl onto this blue peekaboo, and I'm going to spray paint it a dark blue also, which seems strange, but there's a reason for that. I purchased some semi-transparent floral decals from Maestra Creations, and I've been really loving the way those florals pop and draw your attention to the really vibrant colors. And I think the reason that I like the way they stand out so much is because I've been putting them on muted bases or monotone bases that don't have too much color. So I don't want to take the attention away from the florals. And so because I did a floral peekaboo and I'm going to put some floral vinyl decals over the top of the peekaboo, I didn't want those two to clash with one another and pull the attention away. I wanted just one to stand out, and that would be the floral decals. So the reason I'm spray painting this blue glittered cup blue is because I want it to be sort of a monotone appearance. But what I'm going to do after I spray paint is I'm going to use the Tack-It method, and I'm going to apply a white, it's called Diamond from Glitter Heart Co. It's a white glitter, high sparkle, over the top of it, and then I'm going to burnish it out. And that's going to, so now the base isn't going to be totally blue looking. It's going to look, it's going to pull some purple out of it. So the white diamond glitter mixed with the blue spray painted base after I burnish it is going to give it a different color, which allows you to see the floral peekaboo behind it without drawing your eye to it too much to take the attention away from the vinyls. Does that make sense? I know that was very wordy. So I am just using a heat gun to dry the Tack-It just to make sure it is sticky before I apply the diamonds glitter. And then once you apply the glitter, you just put the glitter all over the tumbler and you rub out the surface until all of the glitter is, let's see, how do I explain that? What I do is I tip my tumbler slightly sideways, and if you look down the side of your tumbler, you can see where the big bits of glitter are still hanging on. And so I just rub all of those until the big chunks of glitter have totally fallen off, and your entire tumbler looks like it's all the same texture, I guess. So here I'm just sprinkling the glitter on, and then you just rub it off. It did take quite a while for me to burnish all those glitters off of there because they were kind of hanging over hanging onto where the stencil vinyl was sitting. The edge of the stencil vinyl, those glitters were getting a little bit trapped in there. And I wanted to make sure that was completely rubbed out because I'm not going to be putting an offset piece of vinyl over the top. So once these stencil vinyls are pulled up, that's it. Then I'm just going to epoxy over the top of it and then start applying my floral decals. So I really wanted to make sure that there wasn't any little chunky bits hanging on for dear life. Okay, and once all that glitter mess was taken care of, then it's time to start pulling up the stencil vinyl pieces. I used a finer cut glitter, so the stencil vinyl pieces underneath were fairly easy for me to see. But I did have to keep tipping my tumbler back and forth to see where the texture rose a little bit above those vinyls because I was struggling with the shine off my lamps onto this diamond glitter. So it was really it was kind of making me cross-eyed a little bit, but I got through it. I pulled off all the little pieces. It took me forever. I was just watching Bridgerton while I was doing this vinyl. And so Bridgerton, took my attention away from how time-consuming and tedious it was to pull these vinyls off. I don't want to torture you by making you sit and watch me pull each one of these off one by one, but you get the picture, so you just take all the vinyls off all the way around your tumbler, And make sure you have something enjoyable to watch or listen to, like maybe an audiobook or something. I don't know. So I'm just going to skip this part and go right to what I do next, applying the decals. Okay, that was a lie. We're not going to the decals yet. After I peeled off the decals, it's time to epoxy. And what I did is, after I put my first layer of epoxy over my tumbler, I added in, first I mixed a little bit of mica. What was the color? It was wine from Amazon. I linked it below in the description box, but the color is wine red. So I mixed just a little bit of wine red mica powder into the epoxy that's going to be left after I apply this layer. And then I decided to use some chunky glitter over the top of it too. And that chunky glitter that I sprinkled very, very sparsely over the top is from PDB Creative Studio, and it's called Moonchild. And it's very pretty. And those combinations together, the reason I use the wine red mica is because you can see the purples being pulled from the diamond glitter that I burnished over the top of that blue. And so the wine red mica is going to blend in really nicely and pull the reds out of that tumbler just a little bit more. And then the Moonchild has all of those colors in it. So it's a chunky mix. So when you sprinkle it over the top, it's just going to add that extra sparkle, and you're going to have bigger bits of the same colors that you already have in your tumbler. Now, to create some more depth to this tumbler, I was thinking about epoxying first, letting that epoxy cure, then putting another layer of epoxy over the top of it, and then doing the mica in the glitters to create, so when you're looking down, you can see like there's a thickness of just clear epoxy, and then you see another color underneath it, and then another color underneath it. So that creates depth, and I didn't do that because this tumbler already it's very heavy. It's a 32-ounce tumbler, and it already has multiple layers of epoxy over the top of it. And so I didn't know how thick this was gonna get if I kept messing with it. And so I just did the mica and the glitter all together with that layer of epoxy that I put right over the Peekaboo. So when it was cured, I took it off. I cleaned up the edge with my craft knife, and I used my acetone to get in there really good on those threads to get all of that. Look at all that spray paint. My gosh, that stuff is thick. So I got rid of all that blue spray paint and then sanded the top edge very carefully, made sure that it was washed and ready to go. And then I did sand a couple areas. I didn't want to put another layer of epoxy. Like I said, I didn't want it to get too thick. So what I did instead is there were a little, some areas that had the chunky glitter still poking up just slightly. And so I used my 120 grit sanding block to very gently sand the outside of that tumbler. And then I used my clear gloss spray paint to spray it 3 or 4, I think I did 4 sprays on this tumbler to bring that shine back before I apply my vinyl floral decals. So then once the clear spray paint has been completely dried, now it's time to begin applying the decals. I was really struggling with the placements of these decals because there's only 2 of them within that set of the colors that I wanted to use that had the big bouquets with the greenery. And so I actually ruined a couple of them because I peeled them up and then poked my finger underneath it and then tore a section. And so I had limited florals to work with that all matched for the ones that I wanted to use. And I didn't want to trade, and I had this in mind and I was going to stick with it. So what wound up happening is I used my lid to figure out where the front and the back is. And then I placed my florals, and I knew I wanted something, some sort of vinyl saying or something on the front portion of it. And I also wanted something on the back, but I had no idea what I was going to use yet. But I just placed my florals so that I did have words on the front and the back, that the words would overlap the florals a little bit. And then I was going to actually put more than 2 bouquets on. And as I was placing the other flowers around, I just did not like the way they looked. And so I kept peeling them up and repositioning. And then I was getting a little bit frustrated. I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to use these ones. They're not blending. So I just stuck with those 2 sections of florals. One of them has the greenery and the other one just has a little bit of greenery that I put in there. And because I've never used these decals before, I wasn't sure how the epoxy was going to lay over the top of those decals. Sometimes epoxy makes it look seamless, and sometimes the decals, you can still see the edge through them. Maestra Creations decals look flawless when you put the epoxy over. So after I pulled the tumbler off my turner, I applied these decals, I put the epoxy on, and then I thought, well, shoot, I could have used more, but I just left it as is, and then I just created a bigger vinyl section with words to put on the front and the back of the tumbler. So while my tumbler with those 2 sections of florals was spinning on the turner, I went into my Cricut design space and I started creating some text. So I knew I wanted it to be a Mother's Day something, and so I've seen these where it has like mom is, or she is, and then it's my mom, and it has a list of all these things that are your mom. So I want to give this to my mom, and so I started putting all these words on there. And then I put independent, and yes, my mom is very independent, but it didn't fit. So in the very end, after I created all of this, which you're not going to see in the recording, I went back and I took out independent, and while I was taking out independent, I also took out these lines that I added, these little curved lines that I added right after the heart, because it looked weird when I printed it out. It just looked like a bunch of really long lines. And so I went in and I readjusted. I took the lines out, and then I took the word independent out. So what you're going to see on the final tumbler is everything that I'm doing right here, except for the curved lines and the word independent. I would have to say, hands down, this weeding of the vinyl situation that I have going on lately is the most difficult part of any tumbler I have made this past week. So I just finished a custom order where there was a tumbler that had a whole bunch of words, very small print, and I think I must have printed and weeded that sucker 10 times before I finally got it right. So anyway, this has been quite the process lately. So I'm weeding it, not getting frustrated. I decided to do an offset. So the offset is going to be a mauve color, a very light shade. And then the vinyl that I'm weeding right now that's going to go over the top of that offset is a dark wine or burgundy. So here you can see the offset has already been placed on the tumbler. I made sure that it was lined up. This tumbler is curved, but I didn't have any problem at all getting that to line up perfectly. So I just stood my tumbler up, and then I placed the center of the vinyl. I just touched my tumbler lightly with the center of the vinyl. And before I pressed that vinyl offset down, I took my measuring tape and measured the bottom and the top. So what I like to do is if there's lowercase letters, like say you have an E in the front of the line, and then there's another E or an A or whatever that's like the same length on the other side, the end of the line, I'll measure those 2 points to make sure that those 2 points line up. So I've already done that. That didn't get recorded, but so I have my starting point, and then I'm going to place my burgundy or wine vinyl right over the top of it, piece by piece, just to make sure that the curve of the tumbler doesn't skew any of those letters. Okay, so back on the turner it goes after I have spray sealed again with Krylon clear gloss, just to make sure that those vinyls do not pull up. And then I actually do need to put one more layer of epoxy over the top of it after this one, because I can still feel some of the vinyl texture under my hand, and one little letter was poking up at the very tip a little bit. So after that's done, then of course you have to clean off the rim one final time and make sure that everything is nice and smooth, and then it is ready to give as a gift or keep for yourself or whatever. If you want to make a mom cup for you because you're a mom, make a mom cup for you. You deserve it. So happy early Mother's Day to all of you out there who are a mom or a grandma or take care of children or whatever. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video. And if you recreate this and you have social media like Instagram, I would love for you to tag me because I don't see anybody's posts because I'm still new at this. And so people just don't tag me. So if you make one, of my cups or you change it up a little bit, let me know. That would be pretty cool. Okay, thank you so much for watching.